Frequency Episode 6, Deviation. Now, we're still going along with the Nightingale arc, and I think it's kind of coming to a close. I mean, I keep thinking, like, the next episode has to be the last one, but they keep throwing in, there are cases in between. Like, the last episode didn't even have anything to do with the Nightingale, and this one was very interesting because it kind of revolved around a former case where it was like, alright, they were able to save this person, just like they did with the other episode, where they're able to save someone. They're able to save this young woman who grows up to end up getting married, and she has a son and stuff. And they kind of do the same thing in this episode where Raimy realizes, like, all right, this person, the Nightingale, is kind of rattled. Like, things are getting real close. The clock is seriously ticking right now, and her dad has to figure out what the heck he's gonna do. So he's kind of pushing everything that he can to get the Nightingale, and he feels like he's being kind of sent messages and stuff like that because he can't catch this person anymore. So he's going through an insane situation where he's trying to figure out where the Nightingale is at, and Raimy has to do the same thing where now she's trying to figure out what's going on with the Nightingale now, and she's kind of on the news. They have that one little moment, and I just like the way it all played out. It's become so oddly personal that it's kind of creepy now, because before it was just like, oh, the Nightingale, since they kind of altered history, the Nightingale ended up, killing her mother and, killing, way more people. And now it's kind of going from bad to worse, it seems, because now Raimy is actually a target as well. And it's just crazy. And it seems like the reason, and I don't know if they're going to kind of get into this, but it's starting to seem like the reason, Raimy's mom was taken is because the Nightingale wanted to kind of mess with Frank. It was like, oh, you messed me up. You stopped me from doing this before. So now that I have this picture, I'm going to, it seemed like he was already following his wife, or I guess ex-wife. So it didn't seem like that was the main cause for him going after Amy's mom, but it seemed like that may have kind of boosted his influence to do it. And then of course we have the picture at the end that's like covered in blood, and they wipe it away, and I knew it was going to be a picture of Raimy. I didn't think it would be their whole family, but I'm like, it's going to be a picture of her at least. And it was just crazy. I was like, wow, so he's coming after her in the present now. And they have the moment when she realizes that the woman is being killed, which she was told by the guy who says he can see the future, or can talk to himself in the future. So he may or may not have, there may or may not be some truth to what he's been saying. He's also absolutely insane, because it seems that his future self is constantly telling him, you gotta kill this person off. Like, and he does mention, when we first get introduced to him, like, hey, I tried to do everything I could to stop him from drinking. I would slip AA flyers underneath his door, steal his beer, all sorts of stuff. But, excuse me, ultimately I knew I just had to get rid of this guy because that was the only way to take care of it. So he telling her, like, hey, this is what happens. Like, this is how she dies. And then she comes back to him and says, like, hey, we saved her. And he's like, no, you didn't. And then she finds out that he's right. Like, she, looks the woman up and everything, and she thinks that she's in, like, Africa or India. And then she finds out that she and her husband actually moved back, like, a year before. Same thing, she has, like, the rosary beads tied around her and stuff. And then that little clip of Raimy on the news keeps repeating over and over on the TV. So it's gotten to a really crazy level now, and Raimy has to kind of fight for herself now at this point, because the Nightingale killer is kind of like, well, I guess it's time. I don't know. It's just like it's time for revenge, I guess. So it's gonna be pretty crazy in this next episode. I'm really excited for it. And then we also have kind of this little side relationship thrown in there by Frank when he was undercover, because they had the little scene with Moreno. And when they had that scene at first, I'm like, why is he randomly coming up to him? Like, nothing's happening. He's just looking into the Nightingale case. But I guess he was just mad. He was like, he wanted him dead anyway. So I guess if I planned to have somebody killed, I'd be mad too if he left. But he kind of comes at him earlier in the episode, and he's like, if there's a friend or whatever that you have on the inside, and he was kind of messing with them. I, of course, just assumed he meant the actual drug dealers, which this woman probably was. But I just figured he meant one of the guys. It was like, you guys are hanging out and stuff. They even have it in the first episode when the guy's like, I invited you to my house and things like that. So he got close with these people, and then we get the pictures at the end of the episode, and he got really close to one of these people, and it's like, oh, well, that's very interesting. When he was undercover, even though he was still married, he cheated on his wife. And it was like, oh, that adds a totally different element to this character. Disappointing. It's very disappointing to see, but I don't know how that's supposed to play out. I mean, obviously, Stan's thing is that he wants to use that to, freak Frank out, and I don't know where it would lead to. I mean, it's not. I guess he could come up with something else. I mean, he doesn't know that they aren't together anyway. So maybe that was the whole point of that. Was like, oh, let me just drop these pictures off, and maybe she'll take a look or something like that, and get really pissed off with him, and they will split up. So, of course, if more copies of these pictures end up in the house or around the house or wherever, there's definitely no chance that they can end up together. So I don't know how that's going to play out. It was very surprising to see that. I just thought, like I said, it's going to be a friend, and he's kind of taunting him and saying like, oh, like kind of doing his normal thing, because he was acting like he didn't want him dead and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh, he's just kind of effing with him, like, oh, you're buddies and stuff like that. And so they're bringing it back, the Moreno thing, they're kind of bringing back, and he's, kind of taunting Frank at this point. So I don't know where that's going to go, but I am curious to find out. I'm very curious to see how that's going to play out, and if certain things happen. It's hard to say, but I don't know if Moreno would care enough to do that in the present timeline with Raimy, to like show those pictures or even say random things like, yeah, and your dad, did this or did that, just to like really F her up just because he's pissed at her. So I don't know. Maybe that could definitely happen. It's really hard to say, because Moreno he does his own thing. So hard to say exactly how that's playing out, but I like what they did with the case in this episode. It's getting down to the wire now. I mean, Frank actually fought the guy. He didn't beat him, unfortunately. So the guy continues to go on. He does end up killing that woman in the present, which unfortunately, well, technically they can still save her, because I was thinking after she died, I was like, oh, there's nothing they can do. But obviously, if they're able to figure out who the Nightingale killer is, they can stop all this stuff, because all Raimy has to do is find him in the present, and then it's like, this is exactly who it is. And then Frank just has to come up with some random excuse and be like, well, this is the guy, this is the exact person. So he's doing everything he can. He's checking out all the cameras and things like that, and he's trying to do anything that he can to catch this dude. But it's just, the clock is ticking, and now Raimy has like a full-on nemesis. It's seriously, this guy's like a action like villain or something, where it's like, I'm the nemesis of the hero or whatever. So this guy is just continuing to survive and continuing to get away, or they keep finding the wrong person who also happened to do something bad. So it keeps going, and I'm assuming it's going to lead up to the actual season finale. I don't think they'll catch him until the very end, but I'm excited for how this is continuing to go on. Like, every episode, I'm like, I think it's going to be the end, and they do some really logical stuff to keep it going, and there's just always that next crazy step, and then all the little stuff like Moreno messing with Frank, and we still didn't really get much on Mekhi Phifer's character. I swear to God, I can never remember his name. They say his name like every episode, and I still never remember the character's name. But we still didn't get much on his character, and how long he's been dirty, or what happened to kind of flip him to Moreno's side or anything. So I'm sure they'll go back to that, but I thought this was a really good episode. Of course, definitely want to know what you guys thought about it, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And now that we have almost like an official rivalry between the Nightingale Killer, and I don't know if it's really going to end up being a rivalry between the Nightingale and Frank. It's clearly one between Raimy and the Nightingale Killer, with like the way they did the message and stuff, like, oh, the clip on the news and then the picture and stuff. That was a very clear message to Raimy. So I want to know how you guys think that rivalry is actually going to affect the way they solve this case, because I'm not 100% certain, considering what we saw with Raimy before with the other guy that she thought was the Nightingale Killer. I'm not too sure that she's going to be in a situation where she lets the guy live. Like, she'll probably get his name, and then it's like, oh, well, he's dead now, because ultimately she could easily do that and just kill the guy, and then as long as Frank actually pulls it off, I mean, it would really be up to him, but as long as Frank is able to pull it off, it won't matter. She technically wouldn't be in prison anymore. So I don't know how it's going to play out. Of course, we still have the guy who says that he can talk to himself in the future. I want to believe him because he was right about the murder, and he says that he has the info for the Nightingale killer. He wants Raimy to believe him first. And then on the other side of that is this dude, like every flashback was him stabbing somebody or chopping a dude's head off. Or the end of the episode, he killed a guy with a screwdriver, and he's like, you know, he just seems insane. He's like, you know, had to cut off the trunk, and then that was it. And I'm like, this guy might be telling the truth, but he's also insane. Like, I know that his future self is telling him to do stuff, but it's just kind of crazy, and it's really hard to say. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's really hard to say, because it's like, I don't think they'd added a new element outside of time travel where he's just clairvoyant or something like that. That would be the only other explanation, is that he can actually see the future. So it's either they're going to add that element, or he just does everything his future self tells him to do, which I don't think his future self would have that much information if he keeps killing a bunch of people. I would assume that he would eventually, he has to get so many extra sentences that he can't talk to himself in the future. There's just no way. Unless, I guess he's talking to himself from prison at this point because he keeps killing everybody. So, hard to tell where they're taking that character, but I am very curious about it. Like I said, though, I want to know how you guys think the rivalry between the Nightingale killer and Raimy is going to play out. And, of course, what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.